Today I'm going to go over the golden rule of black and gray with you guys. I'll give you a hint. It has to do with 3. That's how high I can count. All right, let's talk about the rule. Let's talk about this golden rule. It's thirds. You might have heard this before. I'm going to break it down with you guys today, but we're going to break everything, the whole grayscale, into 3 different parts. It's going to be black, midtones, light. You can do this with any piece, any style. It's kind of a great place to start when you're working with black and gray. Easiest way to think of it is 1/3 of the tattoo is black, 1/3 of the tattoo is midtones, 1/3 is highlights. So I'm going to be doing this sick gargoyle today. I like this piece because a lot of the reference is already broken down for you, right? So if we look at the gargoyle itself, everything inside here on his inner body, his inner chest, is pretty much in that black zone, right? What we want to see, which is face, this shoulder here, this arm, everything in the forefront, that's our light. And everything in between is our midtones, right? So this guy is a perfect example, of the rule of thirds, with having 1/3 black, 1/3 midtone, 1/3 highlight. We're going to be using the highlights to draw the eye too. So anything we want to be seen or make the impression on the piece, that's going to be in that section, and anything we want to push back or kind of disappear into the background, that's going to be black. So if we're talking about the whole piece, we have this pillar out here that he's standing on. I'm going to apply it to this pillar. Everything down here is going to be in the black section. As we move our way up, this is going to be midtone section, midtone, and then up here is going to be nice and light, this ledge. That's where we want you to see. We want you to see the edge of the ledge. We're going to create some separation here with the black. Come back into the gargoyle. Already broke that down with you guys. And then same thing in the background. So this is going to be all light, midtones as we get farther away, black as we get farthest away. So it's going to be black, mid, light, black, mid, light. It just follows this whole pattern. When we see those patterns or they're easily identifiable, it just looks nice. It looks organized in our brain. It's easy to tell what's what. So this can be applied to any style, like I said, any black and gray. I'm going to show you how to apply it today. So we're just going to focus right now on this pillar. The pillar ends here. That's the edge of it, right under his hands. Comes around the outside here, all the way down. So we're going to break it into 3 sections. This top part here is our light section. This part is our mid. So in here, it's our mid. And then anything below this is our dark. So this is all going to be in our dark section, all the way down here. So this I'm going to be doing almost black. And I'm going to be moving my way up. And as I go up, I'm going to get lighter. This exact pattern is going to continue throughout the sleeve. So in the gargoyle, the dark is going to be below, and I'm going to move up towards the face and the arm and get lighter. Same thing on this arch here, dark in the back, lighter. So it literally follows this pattern all throughout the piece. The direction of the piece is that way. That's kind of why the pattern's going that way. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to kind of gray line all this stuff out. I'm going to start my shading from the bottom up. So I'll get this in nice and dark. I like to get my dark parts done first, and then I'll move, into this section. Once I have this completed, it's kind of set the tone for the rest of it. Creates my grayscale. All right, this is what dark looks like. So if this is what dark looks like, I have a comparison for my mid section and my light section. So let me get this gray lined out first, and then we'll check back in. So I have this gray lined out, and then I, wiped away some of the stencil. The reason I did this is because I'm going to be making up the fades and adding details, all this. I want to be able to see the skin. I want to see my true tone. I don't want to get lost in the marker or the purple. So I just wanted you guys to see what this looks like. Now, there is this line that runs down the middle here. And that's kind of the building changing its perspective, kind of going back this way. And our light source, remember, it's coming from this. So that whole line is going to cast a shadow. So I'm going to be flicking off of that to help represent where the light is and also divide the structure. You know, because this is the front face and this is the side of the pillar. So that'll help do that. When I'm doing that though, what I like to do is get in the details of the structure first. So this, I kind of have, you know, this kind of offset in like the molding. So you can see I like started this shade already. So before I, you know, flick off that border line, I will get the details in first. So you can see I started to get these guys in here. You know, so if you're gonna do that, you know, and this, you'll see these on faces, on anything you're like splitting down the middle. I always put the features in first or the details in first, and then I'll probably do that effect last. But like I said before, I'm going to be working my way up. So I'm going to focus on this part because it's darker than that part, but this whole section is still going to be in our dark parts. And don't forget to look at the entire piece, because sometimes, you know, I'm going to be making this all dark, and it's a big piece, you know, it's on a leg, it's something large. And sometimes you can start to second guess yourself, like, oh man, this is a lot of dark, but in comparison to the whole piece, it's really not a lot of dark. So we're going to trust in the process. So I'm going to be building this up. I'm just kind of flicking off. This is like an indented section in the pillar. So we're going to push that back with some shadow. And whenever I'm doing these architecture style pieces, I try to lay them out like pretty simple. You know, make sure the perspective's right, make sure everything is following that perspective that you've chosen. And then you can kind of add in details from there without going super crazy. So like even having, you know, this this slight indent, which looks pretty simple. I'll get this developed in here a little bit more. I'm just trying to get kind of this same tone throughout of it. It's kind of a slow process. But sometimes you can add like fades within fades, or you can just sharpen certain things and it'll make it look, you know, pretty detailed without going that complex. So even on this, like if I come right up to the border here, and I just add like a small shadow, you know, this would be considered like adding a detail. And it's nothing crazy. You know, I'm not doing a new structure, a new piece. Just adding that in there. You can do one on the top, because the light is above us. So these are kind of like the details you'll see me adding in these pieces. You know, back in the day, I might try to add like a whole ornate thing going through it or something in there. And you can do that, but I think it's a little unnecessary. And a lot of times, like in this piece, the architecture is like secondary. So I don't want to go too crazy with it, or it'll distract you from our main subject, which is the gargoyle. So my goal is just going to be like clean and simple, so that you can see I've taken the time to produce a good tattoo with the architecture, but I haven't gone like so crazy. Like I'm not trying to like show off or anything where it's going to completely draw your eye away from the main subject. You know, if the whole thing was just architecture, it might be a different story. You might see me adding extra things in there, or like little, you know, ornate details or ornaments throughout the piece, like really showing off, because that's all we would have. But in this case, in this particular piece, you know, our main subject's a gargoyle. So I'm going to leave that kind of stuff for the gargoyle. So remember, on the bottom here, this is our darkest section. So everything above it is going to have to be lighter. And that's why it's really good to have that section be pretty much black, because Because if your darkest section in your tattoo is not black, your grayscale is gonna look skimpy. So like I have my details in now. I'm gonna help the mag, make it look like black, really dark. And it'll give me more leeway in my grayscale and my ability to stretch out the scale and have a mid-tone section. And it's okay to put your whole grayscale in and then come back and make things black. If you're not sure, you can always go darker. This was something I did a lot in the beginning. I would kind of shade the whole piece and then go back at the end and do things like what I'm doing now, making things darker. I'm just pretty comfortable with my own grayscale and value system, so I don't mind just doing it now. Cool. So now we're going to move up to the section above. I'm going to put a nice drop fade here. This will be dark. So I'll check back with you guys in a little bit and we'll move to the mid-tone section. All right. So take a look at this, guys. We have our dark section in. It's very dark. It's not black. Certain parts are like solid black, like around here. But all this is a very dark gray. Now we're moving into our mid-tone section. So really all that means is I'm just not going to shade it as much. Still going to put in the details the same way. Just at the end when I end up shading all over it, I'm just not going to make it as dark. We're going to keep it that middle tone section. So I just wanted you guys to be able to see the process on this piece. So I'm doing the same thing that I did on the first one. I'm going in, put the details in, then I'm going to whip off that center point, put that big shadow on there, and then I'll saturate the whole thing. And now I'm just hitting this little ledge here, do a little shade on the top and the bottom, flicking off from my dark point. I am bumping the contrast a little bit. My client is tan. I want to make sure the blacks are in there solid. The contrast is turned up a little bit more to kind of go with his skin complexion better. So my little details at each end of that. And then I will shade out from the center point. Kind of saturate the whole thing. So with this, I want to make sure my details and shading are lighter than my lower section, because this is the mid section. So I have a good comparison on where to gauge or how to gauge how dark to go. And we're going to be checking back and forth with that the whole time. And you can always make tweaks. Like let's say I ended up making that too dark, right? Like, oh, it's in my midsection. I want it to be a little lighter. You can always come back in and make the area below a little darker to get that to stand out. Not that I think I needed it, and I just hit it just with a wash, but it's a little trick just in case you make it too dark. It's always good to kind of go back and revisit some of the shapes that you've created to make sure that they're clean and precise. This is why I kind of like layering in all my pieces. It allows me to revisit the areas just to essentially double check everything. So cool, we're getting a nice middle tone in there that I like. It's not too dark, not too light. Just gonna feather this line in. I'm starting to lose it a little bit. I want to lose the line if we don't have to. I'm going to come over to the face, the other side, brush this initial shadow down, kind of just flicking down in the ledge. Right above this is a little lip on the ledge here. We're going to let that be a little lighter so it looks like it's protruding. I'm going to redefine this outer border. And then I'm just going to begin to pull the fade down by flicking off that same line at the top and just extending my reach. And then I'll continue this over and over again until the fade goes to the bottom. So we're at the end of the first session. Let's take a look at what we got so far. We got in this pillar that I was breaking down for you guys earlier. You can clearly see the 3 sections following the third rule, right? This golden rule we're talking about. Bottom is dark, you know, in that black range. We have our midtones here, and then we have our light up top. So to me, this really separates the piece and makes it easy to take in sections. We'll be continuing this. We started a little bit on the body up here. Tomorrow, we're going to be moving all the way up, and you'll be able to see this reflected in the gargoyle and then also in the architecture. So great first day. I'm going to wrap this up using the pad system. You guys see me do this all the time with the back-to-backs to save the stencil. So we'll get into this tomorrow. Today is day 2. Last night we wrapped them up using the pad system to preserve the stencil. Let's cut it off and check it out. He changed the design mid-tattoo. You may have noticed the face in the design changed. And I wanted to talk about this for a second, because first off, it did. Your eyes are not fooling you. We changed the face mid-tattoo. These things happen. It would be completely ideal if every tattoo, you designed something, you showed it to someone, and they said, yes, run it. Not reality. Things change. This was one of the hardest things for me to adapt to as an artist. It happened today, so this is a perfect example, to talk about. I remember in the beginning when these things would happen, people wouldn't like the idea I came up with or the design. You know, you get frustrated. And I think the best thing you can do is not show your frustration. Having gone through this hundreds of times, people changing designs before, after, during, for me, the best thing to do is get to the acceptance part as quick as possible. Okay, not my first idea. We're gonna go with plan B and just adapt. So the client had asked, can we change the face during the tattoo? So we'd already been tattooing for several hours. Not ideal, but what can we do? We're the artist, we're the professional. We ran through some options. I did my best to find out exactly what he wanted changed, created a new design, wiped off the stencil just a little bit around the face with some alcohol, traced out a new one, got it sized, replaced it. So we're day 2, working on the same tattoo with a new face and just making the best of it. If you guys want, I can make an entire video on these situations, on changing design, non-ideal, changes specifically. Let me know in the comments. Let's get back to the tattoo. All right, we're going back in today. So we're gonna apply our thirds method to our gargoyle. So let's see, I'm just gonna start with the lightest points. I know some of this has already started, but like our light points, like our here on this muscle, here, on the shoulder here, also in the neck, and then like this whole side of the face, right? Our mid areas are gonna be, actually the neck is like a dark area, so this is gonna fall on our dark. Our mid is gonna be all this chest and that other shoulder, and then you can see in the back here is a lot of our darks. So like his other leg coming here, his like belly. We have a knee back here that's more in the mid. But we're gonna start breaking these up. So I'm gonna like brush black over this whole thing so all that falls in the background now that I have the details in. We're gonna make this part fall back to accentuate the shoulder. So that'll all be like dark mid. That'll be dark. And then this, we're gonna brush down our mid. And then the neck will be dark. So what's that gonna do? That's gonna pop out this arm, the head, and the top of the neck. That's all we want. Everything else I'm gonna push into the background. So we'll have our darks here, our mid on the chest and this Arm, we will have some darks and stuff in the head, but I want the shoulder, arm, top of the neck, and face to pop. So as soon as they look at it, those are the things they look at. It's gonna make it look dynamic. So let me get some of these mids in here. We'll put the dark in the face. We'll start sculpting our arm and break up these sections into thirds. All right, so let's break down the body a little bit. Come over here and take a look at what we got. So same concept, right? We have the dark back here. We move up to the mid section. We have our light on the arm, the face. You might notice the face is a little different. We did decide to change the face. So what that entailed was just kind of, wiping away the old face, stenciling in a new face. Head and body are the same, or neck and body, I should say. And then we just applied the same rule to the face. As you can see, like on the bottom, kind of darker, and as it gets closer to the light, lighter, right? The key elements are going to remain light so that you look at it, cool, I can see the bridge of the ear, I can see the bridge of the face into kind of the snout. We have the eye, so all those things pop up. I left little skin breaks in between the shoulder and the neck so you can see where the jaw ends. So with this face, we're going to have light coming from the eyes and the mouth. And the only way to achieve that is to have it surrounded by darkness. So it's just going to kind of leave us with a darker face to be able to capture that effect. Now to counteract the dark face, we're going to leave a lot of this ridge here on, the top of the head, the brow, into the snout white. But to do that, we'll have to have some kind of background out here, to show the negative space there. So I'm just going to be lightly feathering in. You can see I already, started to do this on the side here, and it really brings out this like beak snout. And then the final step is applying this, to our background. You can see I've already started here in the back of the wing with this solid black. These out here are going to be kind of a mid, and then we'll have a light, and we'll probably bring a down fade so that some shading can meet this face and accentuate our highlights on the face. Dark, medium, light, dark, medium, light, dark, medium, light on the body, on everything. We're just continuing this pattern. We're kind of having this single focus of where the light's coming from. We are not far now. Cool, so we are putting the final touches on this piece. So we have our nice pillar here, using our strategy in thirds, dark, medium, light. We have the gargoyle here, dark, medium, light. It's not as simple as the pillar. The pillar, it's really clear. Like here's our dark, medium, light. With this guy, it's more dimensional. It's like light, medium, dark. And then we see the pattern repeated here, dark, medium, light, right? When we're combining these elements, we're trying to bring light, close to dark, light, close to dark, vice versa, dark, close to light, right? So when I had to emphasize, like for example, this back of the shoulder, I would flick up and off to build the contrast. So we have the light next to the dark, pushes the light forward. If we don't have that, things can look flat. Even light shades down here, by this dark face and shoulder to look nice, help develop dimension. Also to make this, or to remind you that this is coming forward a little bit because of our forced perspective. A little white in here just because we do have a glow effect or an unnatural effect, right? So I use white to do that a lot. I had him hop down for a second so I could take a look at the tattoo standing up. There are a few spots I'm just gonna hit. I'm gonna be defining the shoulder a little bit more. You know, I came back, make sure all the blacks are black, but we are getting very close to finishing this guy up. So let's get in some final touches and then we will photograph this thing. So this rule of thirds, I strongly suggest you try it if you're not already using it in your black and gray work. This is something that is incorporated in all of my tattoos. All of mine are black and gray. You start using it yourself. It's easy. The way that I would start is just identifying the 3 different sections, and it could be overall in the tattoo. So let's do it with this one right here. We're gonna find the black sections. We see him at the bottom on the pillar, we see him behind his shoulder in the top arch, and we see it on the bottom right portion of his body. Those are our darks. Our midtones are the midsection in the pillar, you know, his distant arm, chest, and then the inner face of the top pillar, and then the lights. The lights, the edge of the pillar, the shoulder to the bridge of the face, and the outer part of the arch. So if you want to start applying this in your own tattooing, before the tattoo, in the design process, just take a look at your design. Do I have about a third of black? Do I have a third of midtones and a third of highlights? This will create a well-balanced piece every time. You can then take it how I was explaining it by putting it in the individual subject matter, the pillar, the gargoyle, the arch, right? And if we have a nice balance in each item, it will remain balanced throughout the piece. So good luck. Let me know how this goes in your own tattooing. Try to apply it. See if it improves your work. Thanks for watching.